I discovered a secret encrypted code at the company where I work that reveals recordings of newly hired employees being subjected to experimental tests for their complete control. I am Kenya Hernandez, the head of data analysis at Bionovum, a cutting-edge biotechnology company with top-secret contracts for high-level government research. My responsibilities include supervising several teams of scientists and technicians who interpret the results of clinical and biological tests, as well as validating the integrity of the reports before they are sent to our headquarters in Washington, D.C. For years, Bionovum maintained an impeccable reputation, breakthroughs in treatments, collaborations with universities, and donations to health foundations. However, something inside me always drove me to wonder what was really going on behind the company's glass walls. The day my world changed felt like just another routine day. It was a cloudy Monday in October, upon my return from a trip to the research facility in Boston. When I arrived at the office early in the morning, I noticed that the atmosphere was unusually silent. My usual colleagues, the sample processing team, stared at their screens, but something in the air made me feel out of place. I began my usual round of supervision. I greeted Laura, the lab coordinator, checked the server room to make sure the systems were up, and, before meeting with the project director, I checked my email. Among the client messages and report requests, one caught my attention, an attachment titled Protocol X. It had been sent the night before by an anonymous sender, with a blank subject and no explanation. Something inside me urged me to open it, but as soon as I clicked, a pop-up appeared on my screen: access denied. Insufficient authorization level. My position was mid to high level, yet this folder was restricted to members of the executive board. My instinct told me this was no mistake. I decided to wait until lunch hour to go to the server room and look for clues. There, the network engineer, Carlos, always so cordial, greeted me with a quick nod. I pretended to be concerned about a system issue. He offered his help and mentioned that last week's main server had been forced into maintenance due to a surprise government audit. That audit was exactly the official reason for my trip to Boston. But something didn't add up. That same afternoon, I pretended my laptop was malfunctioning so I could go to the backup room, where encrypted copies of all projects were kept. In the dim light of the emergency lamps, I found an old terminal with a card reader. I remembered that months ago I'd received an extra identification card for emergencies, one with a direct link to high-level authorization intended for members of the internal board. No one had ever explained its purpose. Cautiously, I inserted it into the reader, and to my surprise, the session unlocked. The file explorer unfolded before me. Among folders with innocent names like Sample Reception and Semi-Annual Report, one stood out: Phi24X. It wasn't listed in any manual or in the company's internal directories. Driven by curiosity, I double-clicked the folder. It contained a single video file named Protocol X. A sudden metallic sound behind me put me on alert. The door to the backup room had shut on its own, possibly triggered by the security system. I put on my headphones and played the video. What I saw froze my blood. The scene showed a clandestine lab, several subjects in white clothes, their faces covered with gray hoods, kneeling before a makeshift surgical table. Technicians in surgical gowns held vials and syringes while a masked doctor instructed the team. A label-less serum was injected into one of the subjects. Seconds later, the victim's face went blank and motionless, obeying every order without blinking. They were newly hired employees. I recognized them by their uniforms. The camera turned and captured faces I knew. Some were my colleagues. Stunned, I began to back away, but I tripped on a cable. My headphones fell, the volume surged, and the sound of muffled screams filled the room. Before I could stop the video, I saw a note at the bottom: Moderator, Dr. Kaplan. The project director, Dr. Victor Kaplan, was the mastermind behind all the research. Vertigo took hold of me. I had to get out of there. The door flew open. A security guard, Commissioner Diaz, shone his flashlight in my face and asked coldly, "What are you doing here, Kenya?" I stammered a lie about a network issue, and Carlos the engineer played along, claiming I was fixing a loose cable. Diaz studied me for a few seconds, coughed, and left. Heart pounding, I slipped out of the room without looking back. I returned to my desk. No one noticed I was pale. I spent the next few hours feigning normality as my thoughts raced. I now had undeniable proof of secret experiments for employee mind control, supposedly to create ideal agents without their own will. That night, before sleeping, I wondered what to do with this information. Going to human resources or internal security was pointless. They were all under the control of the executive board. The only person I trusted was Samuel Ortega, my friend from IT and an amateur hacker. I contacted him in secret. At dawn, we met at a cafe far from the industrial area. Nervously, I handed him a copy of the video. Samuel analyzed it on his laptop. The quality, the metadata, everything was authentic. He looked at me in horror. "This is not only illegal, Kenya. It's monstrous," he said. "If this goes public, it will destroy Bionovum, but they will also come after us." He suggested leaking the file to the international press, to a specialized investigative outlet. We needed instant coverage. That was the only way to secure some protection. However, the next afternoon, I received a call from a private number. A distorted voice warned me, "Stop pushing this. They already know you know. Don't dig any further. Or you'll be the next test subject." My blood ran cold. Samuel closed his laptop. "We have to act now," he whispered. "I'll pick you up in an hour." I ran to the parking lot, ignoring Guard Diaz who was standing by my car. Halfway home, Samuel told me he'd sent the video to multiple media outlets and international organizations. He had encrypted copies across every continent. Suddenly, my car's lights flickered. The dashboard read engine error. The brakes failed, forcing me to swerve to avoid a truck. Samuel screamed as we skidded, finally crashing into a concrete barrier. "They followed us," he exclaimed. "A drone is marking us for the rapid response team." We ran into an alley and took shelter under a metal gate. From my purse, I pulled out my phone. The signal was dying. Then I remembered a small USB drive in my wallet containing another copy of the video. I handed it to Samuel. "Take this to a secure server in Europe. I'll distract those bastards." Without a word, he sprinted away. I stayed back, watching the drone circling overhead. I knew then the entire city would soon be hunting me. That night, I slept in an abandoned building. Sleep never truly came, every sound made me jump. At dawn, my phone vibrated with an anonymous message, "Are you still alive?" My reply was short, "For now, yes." 3 days of running followed. My apartment was empty. I grabbed the essentials and burned the rest. I lived with the paranoia of a fugitive. Finally, on the 5th day, Samuel confirmed that the material was online, replicated across 1,000 public sites. I received a call from Elena Valdez, a reporter from a prestigious international newspaper. Her voice trembled with anticipation. "We're going public tomorrow with a front-page story. Get ready, Kenya. This will bring the world to its knees." That night, I watched on my television as the first reactions appeared: protests outside Bionovum's headquarters, scientists demanding answers, human rights lawyers calling for trials. The UN announced an investigation. Dr. Kaplan was removed from his position. The executive board was thrown into chaos. Yet, it didn't end well for me. As I walked down a deserted street, I felt a sting on my neck. A gas clouded my vision and I collapsed. The last thing I saw was the silhouette of a man in a white coat and a Bionovum badge. I woke up in an unfamiliar room, tied to a chair. Guard Diaz, face stern, stood beside Dr. Kaplan. "Welcome back, Kenya," Kaplan said. "You thought you could run and expose us, didn't you? Now you'll learn what it means to cross the line." Vertigo surged through me. The door shut behind them. My hands pulled against my restraints in vain. I didn't know whether to scream or cry, but one thing was clear: my story was just the first chapter of a much larger nightmare.